Okay, folks, I'm just going to throw up one article on unemployment, a couple of issues, just to let you know about the 36,000 lost jobs. The only way at this point, well, let me just first say this. How they got from 469,000 new claims weekly to 36,000 lost jobs is based on something they call the birth-death model. You have to understand something. They have this gigantic X factor, and they go and guess how many new businesses have been created. And based on that X factor, which they make up, I could turn around and say a million businesses were created during the snowstorm in January and February, right? So they had to hire at least five or two or three people per million businesses, and it came out, and we can minus that 500,000 number or whatever the number might have really been, and knock it down to 36,000. That's how they got that 11,000 number back in December, which was a joke, and they fixed that number later on. So that's the birth-death model. That's how they futz the numbers, as they say in Yiddish. It's how they screw with the numbers. So I'm going to leave you with an article from Zero Hedge, obviously going down the U6 number, and also down. They used a different Gallup. They used Gallup's method of counting the unemployed, and they came up with a number of 10.6 unemployment on a U3. And hitting near almost 18% on the U6. The U6 went up, not down, 0.03%. We're running out of people. Basically, we're running out of people to be fired. And I wrote an article. I just want to also let you know that the new newsletter is out. I wrote an article on the East Coast Economic Update article, pointing out that most of the recovery, quote unquote, that's going on is based on the fact that we're using more and more people in India and other offshore locations to do the same work that we were doing. That's why those numbers are. That's why 10 million people are unemployed presently under the U3 number. Also, software has advanced the possibility of having less people to do work, and the software is replacing the person, which is great on the short term for the retail, for the owner, but in the long term, people are what make the economy work, and that's pretty much what's going to what's going to come back to bite us in the ass. So if you want to, I'm going to put the newsletter. If you just have to request, the newsletter will get emailed to your home. Please use your personal email or whatever email you may use to get that. If you want to subscribe. But ultimately, if you drill down, read the entire article from Zero Hedge, because it goes down all through what's going on with underemployed and whatever. Another issue here, which is also fascinating, is it's almost near 20% on the U6. If you factor in underemployed, unemployed, and people who have just stopped looking for work. And these are not, poor, uneducated people. These are white-collar, educated folks. And why am I pointing this out? Why is this so important, John? Why is white, upper middle class, white-collar people so important? Because historically, going back to the American Revolution, all the way down to the French Revolution, and the French Revolution 1968, the Second Revolution. It brought socialism all the way down through history. It has always been the educated class that has stood up and has changed the government. Dissatisfied, hungry, highly educated middle class people are the ones that have always changed it. It's not the lower classes. Even Bastille, you have a group called the Tennis, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, They held parliament in a tennis court, and they were the ones that incited the riot at Bastille Day and started what eventually would become the French Revolution and the Reign of Terror. So, and this goes down the line. The Russian Revolution, same thing. The middle class vassals were unhappy with the high taxation and the fact that they believed in social equivalence. You know, the more educated you are, and this is a very simple. It's a very simple process here, kids. If you have educated middle class people, and they're not working, they are motivated by their education and by their intelligence to change the situation so they can be employed. Not to throw dispersions on poor people, but poor people are used to being poor. I hate to say that. Most times, revolutions, 99.9% revolutions are never started by the poor. It is always started by the middle class and the educated middle class. This is dangerous. Or it can be potentially dangerous, or it could be potentially great because we can change the government. But 9 times out of 10, whenever a government's changed, well, anyway, read your history. So more importantly, you have a lot of people who are discouraged workers, and they are not 20-year-olds. They're 40-year-olds, 45-year-olds with master's degrees that have potentially another 10, 15, 20 years of work, and they have nothing to show for it. So be aware of that. I know it's only one article, but if you drill down into the data and take into consideration that this is no longer, you know, in the 70s, the blue-collar worker was the one suffering. Nobody cared, ultimately, because the assumption was, well, you're going to be moved up to white-collar. You're going to become more educated, and you're going to you're going to no longer get your hands dirty and bring about, you know, you're going to be a happier person. You can make more money, which is a lie. And now the white-collar jobs are gone. So what's left? And now you have 20 million, well, let's see, out of 150, 20% of 103, you've got 15 million people now, technically speaking, under U6 number, 15 million to 20 million of people unemployed. And a good portion of them have about 70% or 60%, I'm guessing, 60% of them have gone to college and have at least a bachelor's degree. This is serious. This is a potential seriousness. Because when you have educated people, they actually, because they're educated, primarily, they have the potential to organize. That's why you're getting these tea parties and so forth. And this is a good thing if it's pointed at changing the way we run business and government and bringing back industry. It can be a bad thing if it's directed by the wrong people, and that's when you get socialism and totalitarianism and reigns of terror, which unfortunately historically has happened shortly after a revolution. So I leave you with this. I leave you with these thoughts and this comment. So good Shabbos to you, everyone.